What's going on, DFS Army? Craig Bennett, aka CashKeg, coming at you here for a little tutorial on one of our new tools called MLB Leverage Stacks. This is a tool meant to not be the top stacks. This is a tool to try to find some low-owned stacks to go with maybe some of your chalky stacks. I know some people are a little bit confused that these are the top stacks of the night, and they are not. They are not. So to find this, if you go to dfsarmy.com, go over here to MLB, slide on over here, see leverage stacks right here. And that's where you'll see this right here on the screen. We got tabs at the bottom here for FanDuel and DraftKings. And for tonight, our top stack of the night for leverage, again, leverage, we're leveraging ownership here. So the key thing here is ownership. And it adds up the total ownership of the 9 guys that are starting. So Philly was an extremely chalky stack tonight. So they're at the very bottom here. Even though we have them ranked point per dollar number 2, and the grade, the DFS Army grade, is number 2. It's not saying this is a bad. This is just going to be extremely chalky. And in baseball with so much variance, you want to get off a little bit of this chalk. So it's very important to have a tool like this to kind of maybe put you on some lesser owned stacks here. So just looking at the scores tonight, I'm recording this tonight on Wednesday night here. So Philly was extremely high owned, almost twice as much as the next stack here. And Philly only ended up scoring 4 runs. So let's look at Washington. Washington was number 1. We look at the DFS Army point per dollar here, number 4, and it was number 1 in grade. So you can kind of see the average grade of all the players was 80. The average points per player was 11. Washington ended up putting up 6 runs here. So even that alone got you over the Philly chalk. And their total ownership was 49%. Now, what it does to find leverage here is it's taking a formula based on the total ownership, but also taking into account the points per dollar and the grade and a few other things that it looks at to try to find the leverage here, to try to find you a lower owned play. So you can take, say, if you liked, like we have Coors Field slates, they're always going to be chalky. You can either completely fade them, or maybe you want to take some of the Philly chalk and find you something up here that you like. Like, let's look at Minnesota was number 2, right? We looked up here. The average grade was great. The point per dollar was great. And Minnesota ended up putting up 12 runs. So for Philly, your chalk stack of the night ended up put up 4. You jumped ahead of the field a ton. They were a third less owned. Minnesota was number 2 of the leverage stack, and they put up 12 runs tonight. There was a lot of runs scored. I see Miami put up 14. Blue Jays put up 11. I don't think they were on this main slate. Even just looking at Baltimore put up 5 runs. They were number 3, really low owned. So maybe you had a Baltimore Minnesota stack. And again, on the other side of the ball here, we're at Philadelphia. So this is not a tool for the main stacks. This is not like, hey, I should just run 1 through 5 because I'm going to win money. No, with all the variance, you can kind of use this information and maybe take a few shots at some of these. Maybe you went heavier on Minnesota. So if instead of going heavy on the Phillies, maybe you went heavy on Minnesota, or you went, if we knew, like, say, Tampa Bay and Houston. So Tampa Bay ended up putting up, what did they end up putting up tonight? They had, where are they at? They ended up put up 9 runs. And that was, again, it was a pretty high owned stack. That's why it's down here towards the bottom. But that doesn't mean you don't play these guys. For me, if I see any team that's total ownership is well over 100% owned, 120, I'd rather just fade it when I play baseball. So also look at some of this other stuff when it comes to leverage stacks. Look at, like San Francisco's number 4, but the average grade's really low, point per dollar is really low. I wouldn't play with this. They only scored 1 run. So don't just play this blindly when looking at the leverage rank. You also want to, that's why we keep all this information in here, so you can kind of see the average projected points. You can see the average point per dollar here in this. And and you can see the average grade as well. So seeing this, you can use this information and realize, okay, well, maybe I want to go Washington and Minnesota because they actually have some good data backing them. San Francisco, they're high because their ownership is really low, but it's not a good stack to play, even though it's number 4. So I'm kind of going to skip that one. So look at the data a little bit here. Like the Yankees, where are they at right now? They put up tonight 6 runs, and they were number 5, and they were a little high owned, but they were number 1 in point per dollar, number 3 in rank. So again, this is not to be a all list, only play the stacks here, but maybe mix a few of these into your chalkier stacks. So maybe I wanted some some Houston and Tampa Bay stacks, but I wanted to fade Philly because it was way too high. But even though these Tampa Bay and Houston stacks, Houston put up 5 runs tonight, Tampa Bay put up 6. Have some of these, and maybe I want to mix in a Minnesota with them, or Washington, or Yankees. So this tool is just to help you find some of the lower owned stacks that have upside, because again, baseball has so much variance that you just have to look for low owned plays to win these GPPs. It's going to be really hard to win GPP when you see this ownership for Philly so high, and you can get over the field a ton. Like tonight was a great example. If you faded the Phillies, you probably had a decent night. If you come over here, same kind of thing on DraftKings. It's the exact same deal. You will see, because of the salaries are different and how the ownership is different on each site, you'll notice that, Texas was number 2 here. Minnesota was down to number 4. Washington was still number 1. And then Boston was number 3 here. Boston up putting up 5 runs. So again, depending on the salaries on each site, it's the same kind of deal, but make sure you're on each one of FanDuel or DraftKings. Don't just use FanDuel for DraftKings, but we have them for both sites. These automatically update as we update our model. So you check throughout the day as we get starting lineups or people get scratched and we redo ownership. The one great thing about tools that we're building is everything's automated here. So as things change, this will change. So constantly look at this, have this open. I think it's a great tool for us to try to find some leverage on the ownership to get ahead of them. And I hope you enjoy this tool and win some money with it. So with that, again, if you're not part of DFS Army, man, head on over. Let's win some money. Deuces.